Sufism is the path of the Muslim mystic. And people sometimes get confused and think of it as a sect in of itself. But the Sufis actually draw upon the wisdom of the Sunni and the Shiites, one as much as the other. And in addition, modern Sufis might be likely to draw on the wisdom of Jewish or Christian or Zen mystics. In some ways, mystics across different traditions at times have more in common with one another than they may have with their particular religious tradition that they call home. And that is why some of the themes that I'll describe today in the context of the Sufi tradition may resonate with those of you who are acquainted with other mystical paths. And yet, the tradition to which the mystic originally relates matters a great deal, so both are true. For the Sufi, that tradition is Islam, and the word Islam comes from the notion of submitting our will to God, or submitting our will to that spirit of love. Given the great importance of Allah, of God, to the Sufi, I invite those of you for whom either of these would be challenging words to choose a metaphor for you that would symbolize the highest good in the universe, to which you would wish voluntarily to submit yourself, to submit your will. That could be love, it could be truth, it could be community, it could be healing. The Sufi concept of God is not so much the anthropomorphic, orthodox, Christian or Jewish God that some of you may have been raised with. To the Sufi, Allah or God is a word which encompasses all that is known, all that is a mystery, and all that is and will be. There is a traditional saying about the Sufis that goes like this: you are a Sufi when your heart is as soft and as warm as wool. As I referenced earlier in the service, the Sufis are both incredibly disciplined and serious about their path, and yet so overflowing with grace and love that they are those who forgive and invite, come back again and again though you have broken your vows. There is a softness as well as a seriousness to their discipline. There are at least three traditions that surround where the word Sufi has come from. Suf means wool, and might reference the simple wool garments that were worn by early Muslim ascetics. And the word Safa in Arabic means purity. And some attach the word to the Greek word Sophia for wisdom. And let me share one of the origin stories of the Sufi path. There was a group of mystics called the Kamal Pash, and Kamal Pash means blanket wearers. And in fact, it was said that these ancients had only one possession, a blanket that they put around them to wear during the day for clothing, and used as a blanket at night. They traveled the world searching for a prophet that could satisfy them. Every prophet gave them instructions to do this or that, but they found that nothing worked. Then one day, at the time of Muhammad, the prophet was seated together with his companions when he said that in a certain number of days, the men of the Kamal Pash were coming. And when they were with Muhammad, he didn't even say a thing. But his loving presence, his gracious, overflowing, loving presence, left them completely satisfied, because even in the company of his silence, he managed to create love in their hearts. And as it is said, when love is created, what dissatisfaction can there be? Sufis are lovers of God, and the title of today's service, Love, Lover, and the Beloved, refers to the Sufi practitioner as lover and God as the beloved. And it is indeed an intimate love, an intimate dance, this particular religious path. The beloved looks into the heart of the lover and ignites it with the spark of remembrance, with a call for the journey, and a fire, an all-consuming fire is lit. The Sufis are considered to be travelers, for they wander the world to the deepest parts of the world, which of course we can make the same journey in place. The greatest journey is within, to the depths of the soul and the heart, and that is exactly the journey of the Sufi. It is an ancient journey that moves us from separation to union. It is the call of the reed flute, torn from the reed bed, who longs to go back to a state of oneness with the divine. There is a sense in the Sufi tradition that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that it is there in our hearts, but that we have forgotten, that we forget the love of God, and the Sufis are the mystics who remember. The first step on that long journey into the heart is the remembrance of love. And it often begins with a sense of discontent with the world as it is, or a sense of discontent and a longing for something else. Even though God is right there in our hearts, and even though God is even nothing separate from us, according to the Sufi teachers, we have forgotten, we don't realize it. There is a saying in the Quran, God is nearer to us than our jugular vein. And the second verse, light upon light, Allah guides to his light whom he will. There's a concept that that spark of the divine, that small light, once it is uncovered, once it is remembered, gives us the longing and the light that we need for that deep journey to God. This light is often described as love, as tenderness, and as guidance. And the light begins to take away that pain that poets have written about, the pain of separation to the embrace of union. Sufism is a path of love, but also of self-knowledge. They value very much the process of self-discovery as much as one is discovering God. On this path, one is discovering about the true nature, our true essence as human beings, which is love. In the end, there is no separation and no room for anything else to the person who has achieved that oneness. Rabia was a great Sufi teacher who was once asked, "Do you love God?" "Yes," she replied. "Do you hate the devil?" "No. My love of God gives me no time to hate the devil." God is so ever on the mind and on the hearts of the Sufi traveler. Here's another prayer of the mystic Rabia. "O Lord, whatever share of this world thou dost bestow, bestow it on thine enemies. And whatever share of the next world doth thou giveth me, give it to thy friends. Thou art enough for me." What a provocative thought. What in this world is embracing enough that it would satiate our appetites and make us feel content? The Sufi mystic walks a path of surrender, letting go of all things that don't create the yes to the question I just asked. Giving up will, giving up ego, giving up the self, and opening their hearts to the mysteries of love. There is an image in several poems of Rumi as well as other mystics. Like the moth attracted to the candle, they are drawn into the fire of love, the fire that burns away really all of the moth. And all that is left is the true essence. This is a metaphor for burning up everything in us that is not of ultimate worth, could not be ascribed to our divine nature. And the Sufis will often describe this as a death, that death is on the path to life. This is an interesting theme in conversation with Easter last week. And they also describe an experience of almost annihilation and ecstatic union. Now, I'm wondering, how many of you have seen the whirling dervishes? Have a number of you had an opportunity? And have any of you had the opportunity yourself to be taught this sacred dance? And what about, let me draw in some others, what about the practice of kirtan in the Hindu tradition, sacred chanting? And how many of you resonate with Emerson's really exhortation for us not only to hear the words of the preacher, but to go out into the wilds of the wilderness, to feel our feet planted on the earth beneath, and at the same time, to touch the soaring of the birds overhead? How many of you get caught up, whether you're theologically where Emerson is, with the spirit of the transcendentalists? This is what this is about, this sense of connection, of union, which many of us have experienced at one time or another. And in fact, in this case, God is absolutely central, but for some, like the Zen mystics, maybe not so. The author of our Building Your Own Theology class that some of you took recently, Richard Gilbert, is actually an atheist who describes himself as a humanist mystic. As a humanist mystic. Oh yes, do we know the power of love showering, connecting, coming out of us like Muhammad next to the early Sufis, whether or not we use that three-letter word. That experience of awakening could come in the wilderness, but in the case of Rumi, as we heard earlier, it came when he was 37 years old and overflowing with knowledge, but had not yet experienced the Spirit of God, as he puts it. And literally, he saw Shams and fell at his feet and renounced all of his religious teachings when the dervish recited these verses. And by the way, these are good verses for Unitarian Universalists. If knowledge does not liberate the self from the self, then ignorance is better than knowledge. Rumi had collected book upon book and really degree upon degree, but he was not yet liberated with that experience of holy, divine love, immanent and transcendent and all around. And so it didn't matter. He could preach about it, but he hadn't really felt it in his life yet. Now, this relationship of Shams and Rumi is very legendary, and their love for one another and the way in which they loved God was so powerful that Rumi's students and family became very jealous. And so Shams left quite suddenly, even as described in the children's story. He reappeared in Damascus, and Rumi sent his son after him, and he was brought back. But soon, Shams disappeared once again, and it's believed he was murdered by one of Rumi's sons. Rumi was consumed with grief, lost in this vastness of love with no partner, with no shams. But it was at this time that he really turned from the heady theologian to a poet, and he wrote stanzas like this. Love is here like the blood in my veins and skin. He has annihilated me and filled me only with him. His fire has penetrated all the atoms of my body. Of me, only my name remains. The rest is him. Rumi is the founder of the Mevlevi order, which we often do associate with these whirling dervishes. This beautiful whirling dance in which the dancers rotate very self-consciously, like the planets around the sun, like the circles of the cells in our body, like the electrons and protons whirling around the atoms. Sufism is at home with science and religion together as we are. So first, there is a longing and a feeling of discontent. And there is a celebration of the longing. If you are thirsty, be thirsty. Don't drink water. Stay in that thirst and what it will teach you. But then eventually there is a turning, as there was from him, a turning of the heart. And then the journey is no longer a journey away from God, but rather to God. And then in order to maintain this connection, this oneness, we come to practice. And the whirling dervishes are just one example. Some of the Sufis actually practice in silence with the word of God, the understanding of love in their hearts at all times, a prayer all day long. We have to remember, too, that observant Muslims, Sufi or no, pray 5 times a day. So in many ways, the Sufi practice is just taking it to the next level. The Sufis are praying all day long with God in their hearts in silence, or God on their lips. And some of you may have heard this practice, dhikr, the repetition of the name of God, or the sacred phrase Allah. And they take great delight in the fact that you can also have Allah, meaning essentially the nothing. For them, God is nothing, and nothing is everything, the foundation of creation before anything was. You are in the land of riddles a little bit with the mystics. When you are empty, you are full. When you are full, you are empty. This is that place. So the Sufi tradition will breathe out all, emptying. Emptying of everything that is non-essential. Whatever it is we're attached to that keeps us from embodying that love. And then in-breath, la, drawing it in. La, over and over and over, all day long. So it could be silence, could be vocal chanting. And then there is the dance. There is the dance. I want to mention just a couple things about the dance, and then we're going to turn to watch a whirling dervish together. The whirling is a very specific meditation technique in which the dervish turns his attention towards the heart and then steps into that space. They hold their right hand up to receive the energy from above, and their left hand downward, directed towards the earth to ground them. So very much like I described the grounding of the earth and the sky. This is a very rooted tradition. And then the body spins from right to left, affirming all of the order in the universe, the highest of which is love. So if we could close the curtains on the left and the right. The words of Rumi from a poem, Say I Am You. I am dust particles in the sunlight. I am the round sun. To the bit of dust I say stay. To the sun keep moving. I am morning mist. I am the breathing of evening. I am wind in the top of a grove and surf on the cliff. Mast, rudder, helmsman, and keel. I am also the coral reef they founder on. I am a tree with a trained parrot in its branches. Silence, thought, and voice. The musical air coming through a flute. A spark of a stone, a flickering in metal. Both candle and moth crazy around it. Rose and the nightingale lost in the fragrance. I am all orders of being, the circling galaxy, the evolutionary intelligence, the lift and the falling away, what is and what isn't. You who know Jalaluddin, you, the one in all, say who I am. Say, I am you. So I want to end with this final thought. What is it in your life that is creating a space of discontent? What is it that you would need to let go of to go on that long journey deep within, to become the very essence of who you are meant to be? And what path might you start to follow this day? Be it a simple practice of pausing 5 times a day, or be it the ambitious thought of having your heart ever on what you hold to be of ultimate worth. And just imagine to live into the possibility of love overflowing so much in your heart that whether you speak or whether you hold silent, your deeds, your presence, your very being allows the flame of love to burn in your neighbor's heart. May it be so. I invite you to join me in our closing song. In the